from carrying the Torah. Because carrying Torah isn't easy. Right? Carrying the lessons of our ancestors, carrying the lessons of every wisdom tradition isn't easy. It's hard. It requires us to lean into really hard stuff. And if we're not doing that, we are not carrying this thing that we call the proper way to be a human being in this world, the way to be a responsible citizen of the planet. We're not carrying it if it doesn't hurt a little. And that's part of the whole lesson of this season. Our Bat Mitzvah has chosen not to talk about so much her Torah portion as the season that we're in right now and the holiday that we're in right now, which is the holiday of Sukkot. So we're in the midst of the holiday of Sukkot. It's the Shabbat of Sukkot. And so she's going to speak about what that means for her. But the Torah portion this week is about brokenness. It's what happens as Moshe breaks the tablets. Kitisa is the Torah portion that we read on the Shabbat of Sukkot. Moshe breaks the tablets when he sees that the Jewish people have started worshiping how they think God needs to show up in their life right now. Because Moshe's delayed on the mountain is the explanation the rabbinic tradition gives it. Moshe's delayed on the mountain and they panic and they get crazy. And what happens when we panic and get fearful and get crazy? We turn to what we know. We turn to what's familiar. And that's what they did. They built a calf because that was familiar from Egypt. And they, interestingly, did not call this calf Ra. They didn't call it Ishtar. They didn't call it some Egyptian name. They called it Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. They called it Adonai. Let us make a festival to Adonai. This is not a teaching about apostasy, about leaving the faith. That's not what they did. What they did was what we call idolatry. What they did was that they left how the divine moves in our lives, how godliness needs to show up in our lives in ways that are uncomfortable for us. And they couldn't do that. So they turned to what was familiar and what was comfortable. And that was the huge sin, the huge problem. Because we don't want to lean into what's hard for us, even if it's the right thing. Right, young people? The right thing to do is often very hard, isn't it? It makes us unpopular. It puts us at the edges, often the margins, right, of what's acceptable, what's normal. And that is a huge, huge breach for us as a people, to understand if we don't step into that, however hard it is, that is not okay. Moshe breaks the tablets, and then those broken tablets, the tradition asks, what happens to those broken tablets? Right? He makes we know he gets another set. That covenant, that commitment is still in place between the Jewish people and lots of people and other peoples in their own ways, between us and the divine, is still in place. But the broken one, what happens to that? And the rabbinic tradition says those broken pieces were placed in the ark, next to the whole pieces, next to the new tablets, next to the ones that haven't broken, to remind us that we have to take those experiences that are painful, that are hard, that are about failure, that are about loss, and we have to hold them right next to our hope and our commitment to what's good and whole and true and honest. We have to hold both of those things together all the time. They were both placed in the Holy Aron, the Holy Ark. So let us stretch as human beings to hold both the hard things, the broken things, the things that we are disappointed in about ourselves and in our relationships to others. Let us hold that right beside the tablets that say we can still do this. We can remain in true and honest relationship. And I'll close by saying the only way we live into a long relationship is to acknowledge the brokenness, to find a way to forgive ourselves and others. And it's only after that disappointment, it's only after those difficult things that we come into real love, that we come into real life, that we come into true, mature happiness. So may it be for us on this Chag, on this festival. I wish you Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.